Good morning. Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. It is my policy to not publicly discuss any electoral politics. I speak about issues if I think there is a Torah perspective to share, but I do not discuss candidates. So let me be very, very clear. What I will discuss with you this morning is not about any candidate. It's not about any candidate in Canada. It's not about any candidate in the United States. It's not about any candidate in Israel or anywhere else in the world. It's not about any candidates. It's a lesson that comes from our Torah portion that should hopefully inform our idea about how to evaluate leadership each person can apply it however you see fit. In this week's Torah portion, we have the passage, Kisavo, we have the passage of the brachos and the klalos, the blessings and God forbid the curses. Hashem promises that if we follow Hashem's commands, all of these great things will happen, the blessings. And then Hashem says, Nebuch, if we do not, then here are the things that are going to happen. I'm going to speak about this more later this week, but this year, the reading of this parsha will be unprecedented in our lifetime, because I do not believe that there has ever been a time in our lifetime when the words that the Torah foretells are literally coming true now and have been since October 7th. As we read this parsha, it should strike us in a way that it has never done before. Because pshuto kamashma'o, without interpretation, without metaphor, without any kind of midrashic comments, just the simple words are an expression, God forbid, of what is happening to us today and over the past year. We're going to discuss this further later this week. But there is a bracha, a blessing. Hashem says, Unesancha Hashem l'rosh v'lo l'zanav. God will make you the head and not the tail. There is a corresponding klala, a curse, God forbid. That's if we listen to Hashem, we'll be the head and not the tail. And the klala is that if, God forbid, that's not the case, hu yeh l'rosh, your enemy will be the head, va'ata tiheh l'zanav, and you will be the tail. That line, by the way, is the source of the siman that some of us say and do on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. On the first night of Rosh Hashanah, we have certain symbolic foods, and we say prayers when we have those foods, the most famous of which is apples and honey. And the idea is you eat something that's sweet, the apple dipped in honey, and then you say the prayer, Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will, Hashem, that this year should be Shana Tova M'suka, a year that is good and sweet. It's a prayer for a good year. Different people have different customs of what foods to have. I'll just confess to you, in my house, we just stick with the apple and honey. We're classicists here. But the people have all kinds of different things, including some people have the head of a fish. Why the head of a fish? And they quote this verse. You have the head of the fish on the table. You make a bracha, and you say, Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will that we should be the head and not the tail. Whether you have the head of the fish or you do not, the sentiment, of course, is very important. But that's where it comes from this line. The Ramban says that the head, we want to be the head, that refers to the leaders, and not the tail, that refers to the followers. We want to be the leaders and not the followers. But the Ramban asks the question that it appears that there are unnecessary words, because if God says, I'm going to bless you, that you're going to be the head, well, automatically you know you're not going to be the tail. You don't have to say, and you're not going to be the tail. Obviously, if you're the head, you're not the tail. And Nebuch, conversely, if Hashem says that we're going to be the tail, we don't have to hear, but you're not going to be the head. Obviously, the tail is not the head, and the head is not the tail. Why does the Torah have to use those extra words? So the Ramban gives an answer that the Ramban gives, but I want to share an answer given by Rabbi Yochanan Zweig, and I actually want to explain Rabbi Zweig's approach using an insight of Rabbi Yisroel Salanter. There's a famous passage in the Talmud. It is at the end of Masechta Sota, 49b. And the Mishnah says, Be'ikvas Mashiach, what will be in the time just before Mashiach arrives? We all want to know when Mashiach will come. We do not know. But the Talmud says, how can you tell that Mashiach is about to arrive? What will the world look like? Now, before I go further, I want to say that this question is asked with numerous answers, and the answers do not all correspond to each other. So again, we have no idea what the world is going to look like just before Mashiach comes, because there are different answers that are given. But this answer is particularly poignant and particularly important for us to hear, as you will hear, you'll understand. Be'ikvas Mashiach chutzpah yazgo. In the period just before the coming of Mashiach, chutzpah will increase. Insolence, offensiveness will increase. V'yoker yamir, costs will rise. The cost of living will become prohibitively expensive. Malchus tehafech leminos v'ein tochachos. Governments will turn towards heresy, and there will be no rebuke of them. Beis vad yil is nus, the place where the sages used to meet, will become places of immorality. Hegalil yecherav, the northern part of Israel will be destroyed. This is the Mishnah written over 1,500 years ago, telling us what will happen before Mashiach comes. The Galil, the northern part of Israel, yecherav, v'hagavlan yisom. And Gavlan, another area, will be destroyed. Va'anshe hagvul yesovavu me'ir le'ir. And the people who dwell on the borders of Israel will wander from place to place, v'lo yechonanu, but they will not have a place where they can rest. Literally what is happening today. Yirei yimasu, those people who fear sin will be despised. V'ha'emes tehei nederes, truth will be absent. Just think of how clearly this mirrors our society and especially our public discourse. Truth is absent. Na'arim p'nei zakenim yalbinu, young people will insult those who are older. Bein menavel of, a son will despise his father. Bas kama be'ima, a daughter will rise up against her mother. Kala b'chamosa, a daughter-in-law will rise up against her mother-in-law. Oy ve'ish anshe beso, oh, what a terrible, terrible thing. A person's worst enemies will be the people living in their household. A person's immediate family relatives living within the household will become the worst enemies. Pnei hador k'pnei hakelev. The face of the generation will be the face of a dog. V'al meh yesh lanu lihisho'en. So what can we rely on? Al Avinu Shebashamayim. We can only rely on God in heaven. The precision with which this passage seems to describe our generation is frightening. Or maybe it means that Mashiach is right around the corner. Each one of these phrases is frightening. But Rabbi Yisroel Salanter asks the meaning Pnei Hador k'Pnei Hakelev. The face of the generation is like the face of a dog. Okay, it doesn't sound nice, whatever it is, but what does it mean? The face of the generation, Pnei Hador, seems to be a phrase referring to the leaders. The leaders, and it's saying something not nice about them. Rabbi Yisroel Salanter offers an incredible insight. He says, imagine you have a man who's walking a dog. And when a man is walking a dog, normally the dog is in front. So if a person's watching this, and a person were to say, well, this is interesting. I see a man, and I see a dog in front. I wonder which of those two is in charge. Who's the leader? And who is subservient to whom? So a person looking would say, well, I imagine the one in front is the leader. The dog is in front. Presumably, the dog is the leader. Until you come to a crossroads. Because when you come to a crossroads, the dog will look back to the man who's leading him. The dog will look back as if to ask, which way, left or right? And maybe the man will point and the dog will go in that direction. So a person who's watching sees it's clear that the dog is in front, but the dog is not the leader. The man is the leader. Even though the dog is in front, because the dog has to look back to see which way the person in back is going to point. Says Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, Pnei Hador k'Pnei Hakelev means when the leaders who are in front are not leading with a vision. They're not leading based on morality or law or justice or compassion. They're leading based on looking back and seeing what the other people want to do. They're leading based on popularity. What will give me the most votes? What will make me the most popular? What will allow me to retain my power? A proper leader is a person who is leading. Yes, of course, a leader has to be somewhat responsive to the people. You have to know where the people are. You have to know what the people need. You have to know how to help the people. But a leader, a true leader, has a vision. A true leader doesn't lead simply based on what's most popular, simply based on what will keep me in power by looking backwards. Pnei Hador k'Pnei Hakelev means a generation where the leaders are not leading based on principle. They're not leading based on what is best. They're not leading based on what is most just or most compassionate. They're looking back. And that's why it says, Tia larosh v'lo lazanav, because you could be both. You could be rosh, but you could still be zanav. You could still be looking back to see how you are going to affect your leadership. And so the Torah is saying, don't do that. That's not correct leadership. Yes, be responsive to the people. Yes, make sure you're empathetic to the people and you're taking care of the people. But you have to be a leader that is larosh and not lazanav, not always looking back to see what's popular. And when we do not have that, that's when Pnei Hador Kapnei Kelev. That's the image of a leader who's not really a leader. He's just walking in front, but looking back to see which way he should go. What our Torah is telling us in these words is that we need to follow the Torah in order to have authentic leadership. We need to follow justice and righteousness and compassion and empathy. We have to have a moral compass, a judicial compass. But this can only be achieved if we are not only larosh, but also not lazanav. Only if we are the head and not the tail can we be the leaders that the Jewish people deserve. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.